And welcome. Let me share my screen, which I have done completely wrong there. I should have done that before, shouldn't I? Then I'd have got it right. So apologies there. Let's start again. Gosh, you think you got it all planned, and then it goes horribly wrong. But that's working now. Fantastic, excellent, good. Let me just get that ready and move that over there so I can see what's happening. So yeah, sorry about that. I should have just shown the screen from the outset, but I didn't. But just shows you it's live, and these things can go wrong at times. So I want to spend today talking about sort of SRM, the tension that we've got, the strategic insight, and also link that with stakeholder engagement and really focus on what differentiates high performing procurement teams. Because I can tell you now, there is no question of it. The importance of SRM, the importance of stakeholder engagement is very, very timely given the Iran conflict, the Middle East conflict that we're going through. I think I was just saying to Kathy before we started, we don't know what's hit us as yet. This is an early warning message for everybody to get organized, and supply relationships, stakeholder relationships are absolutely key to getting us through very difficult and turbulent times. And if it's going to be a repeat like it was with the pandemic, we'll benefit from it in procurement. We remember in the pandemic years that work that we could do to get the business, to help the business, was successful, and we had greater credibility as a result. And I think we're seeing history repeat itself. So the timing of this, even though when we planned this out, we didn't know all that would be going on, but the timing is absolutely perfect. So I hope there's something here that will get you to think. That's always my objective. All the information that I'm going to share comes from CASME, and really want to sort of highlight that the information has come having conducted multiple events on this topic where we've brought category managers together to talk through the subject of both SRM and stakeholder engagement. And then through some benchmarking we've done, we've also then been able to really get a feel for what this is like as of May 2026. So I like to put that date stamp on it. The CASME community is made up of about 180 organizations. So they've all contributed to information and the summaries that I'm going to share with you. Just some of the logos that we're allowed to use are on the screen there. But the main point is that we don't have any sponsors or suppliers or consultants. So the information is very credible. And another aspect, we can rely so much on AI and the large language models like ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot to give you information, but you don't necessarily know where that information has come from. And the chances are that it's come from suppliers selling services in this area. Whereas with CASME, you get the information direct from procurement. So that's the scene setting. That is the position. Now, one of the things that we do is a regular benchmark to work out what are the hot topics. Because in practice, we're all working on the same challenges. It's highly unusual to find a company that's got a completely different agenda. We're all going through transformation. We're all going through change. And these hot topics are really important to understand what exactly is happening in procurement. And it doesn't matter what sector you're in. It doesn't even matter which country in the world you're in. We're all working on the same type of projects. So this is the current list. It is in descending order. AI is top of the list. and I think I've got that as a subject to talk about in the fall. But today it's the supplier and relationship management and stakeholder management, and it's on there because it's so popular. People are wanting more information about it. Now, I know from the summary that Kathy gave of my introduction, she says, "Oh, what I've been up to." I've been in procurement for close on 100 years now. We have been talking about stakeholder and supplier relationship management all the time that I've been running in my career. It's fascinating to know that it's still ongoing. It's still a challenge. We still are having to justify and work with the business and work with suppliers. There's no situation where it's under control. We don't need to worry about it. And for those of us that are involved with indirect procurement, we've got it harder because we don't own the budget. We have to sell the idea of the support that procurement can do. So we've gained because of the pandemic. I think we're going to gain now because of the Middle East conflict. So let's see where that is going to take us moving forward. I want to start with supplier relationship management. I want to be very clear on the R word, relationships. Now, I know that in ISM there is no reference to procurement, but in the UK with Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, that procurement word is there. But you know what? People don't really like procurement. Let's face it, we are seen as the organization that could slow things down, stop people using the suppliers that they want. And so it's one of those frustrating words that I'd love to be able to get rid of. Instead, I think I would position the activities that we do, summarizing that using the word relationships. That's what we are about. Now, when you do I'm jumping aside now, but I've just thought of this. When you do recruitment, the surveys that we had very recently shows that people are now recruiting people that have got strong, proven relationship management traits or credibility. So throughout procurement, think of us as relationship managers. And we do the same with our suppliers. So supplier relationship management, it's different from supplier management. Supplier management is probably what you do with all your suppliers on your accounts payable ledger. The relationship side needs to be focused. And I think there are some winning formulas that go into this. And again, we've got this from our CASME members. If you're going to devote time and energy and investment to managing those relationships, SRM, you can't do it for all of your suppliers. And for those of you that have got tens of thousands of suppliers that are approved on your finance ledger, or those of you that have just got 200 or 1,000 suppliers on your ledger, the number that you're doing SRM activity with should be fewer than 50. A really small number, because it does take time, it takes commitment. It needs that top-down support to make it effective. This isn't just a procurement initiative. One other thing that we're really good at is bringing together other functions within the business. We've perfected that over the years, and I'm seeing more and more times now. Procurement, we're great at facilitating conversation. We're great at facilitating action. And I think for SRM, you need that multidiscipline support. And if you can get that, because you've got the top-down support, you can be successful with SRM. Now, this surprised me when we did the benchmarking and got the survey results back, that 58% of our members, 178 companies in CASME, were saying that you can achieve cost savings through SRM. Now, originally, and it's not going back many years, originally SRM could be seen as a bit of a fluffy activity, a nice to have, nice to do. But the reality is that we've perfected it so much that it does deliver cost savings. The difference is that it may be cost savings in the slightly longer term rather than in your current fiscal year. But don't see SRM as a nice to have or just some activity that you do on a Friday afternoon because you think it's appropriate. We've got 3 polls for you today. Kathy, let's launch the first one and get some real insights on what people are saying to us now. So I want to know, where is your organization in terms of supply relationship management maturity? And we got some options here. We either are saying that you don't have a formal program, you've got that program for a small number of strategic suppliers, you've got a program but adoption is inconsistent, SRM is embedded, strongly supported by the business, or you're not sure. So trying to keep all the options open there, and let's just give you a bit of time to answer those and give you a feel for that. I'm just going to put my Q&A box there so I can see that. Also gives me a chance for a quick sip of coffee. That's the problem of talking too much on this webinar, but it gives you time. It's an easy one. We've kept the polls easy today. I don't like making it stressful for you, so that's great. Let's end the poll, share the results. So 40% of you saying SRM for a small number of strategic suppliers, which is great. A further 33% saying it's strongly embedded in the business. So that's useful to give you to get a good guide of the maturity of where we're up to. So yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, I see we've got just over 30 people on the call, so that's some great feedback. So why SRM? I've said it's not a fluffy activity, it delivers cost savings. But again, when we drilled down and wanted to hear from procurement as to why, it is about that long-term relationship. Again, arguably no surprise about that. We've been talking about long-term relationships for many, many years or decades, but it still is important. We want that relationship with those suppliers that can make a difference to our organization. And I think even though this data was captured prior to the Middle East conflict, it's becoming even more important. Those suppliers that we can genuinely rely on in the long term that will help us out. Maybe it's the same suppliers that helped us out during the pandemic. We've got different requirements now, different situation, because we've got products or goods stuck in the Strait of Hormuz that can't get to us. Whereas with the pandemic, it was more the supply and demand balance that became distorted. So I think it is about that long-term partnership. It's about getting help during a critical time. And I think also becoming even more important as we go through and business needs change, we want that innovation. We need something to set us apart from other companies, your competitors in practice, so that the suppliers are bringing innovation to you and you're going to do something with it. And that is achieved when you've got that relationship in place. Now, it's not easy. I think let's not underestimate. This takes time, commitment, some investment. And the reasons why it can be challenging, again, great to have the data support this. We're busy. If the business hasn't realized, we are crazy busy. We are firefighting. We are trying to make sure that our products aren't stuck on some ship somewhere in the world and we can't get to them. We're busy firefighting because there's fewer of us in the team because someone thought it was a good idea to cut the size of the procurement team or to stop us recruiting because we're going to have AI that's going to do it all for us. The reality is resources are limited. And so if you haven't got that time commitment, it makes it very difficult to run an SRM program. I've mentioned you need that top-down support in order to make it happen, because you can't do this just as procurement. Now, we've also got this other dilemma, which I think we're going to see a lot of this summer, of the relationships versus cost. The pressures that you can be under from your CFO to focus entirely on cost even to the detriment of the relationship that you've built up. And that's the toughest one. It was tough 5 years ago. It will be getting tougher again because suppliers may not appreciate that pressure that you're putting on them. Some of that pressure may be unreasonable. Now, it's easier to do SRM when everything is going swimmingly nice and straightforward, although we haven't had that for quite some years now. We've been in this constant flux of change. So goodness knows when we are going to see stability, if we do. Maybe 1 year, but it certainly isn't any time soon. So if you've got that immense pressure for cost, that also makes it difficult because the supplier is saying, well, hang on, wait a minute, what's more important? Are you really trying to force me down on price, or is it about the relationship? And there's a balance that need to be achieved there. So that implementation is not easy, but as I've said, you do deliver the long-term cost savings, and it does give your business that protection that that it needs. So how should it work at scale? Let's look at some more data that's come from conversations that we've had. So I've talked through some of the objectives and benefits of SRM. I've explained you can't do it for all suppliers. Our poll results confirm that. So it is about segmenting and selecting those suppliers. And what I've seen for the last sort of couple of years is that that process has become more involved. It's not just about spend, it's about other criteria that become important. You've then got to have that engagement with the suppliers, letting them know that they are being treated differently also helps. And the suppliers may be suspicious of you to begin with, but ultimately can get that trust in place. I mean, I love the word trust. I think it's such a vital one, and it's one that really needs to be used guardedly because you need that trust in place. But we know it's so easy to destroy that trust. And almost that example of the cost pressure from your CFO may be enough to destroy it. So you've got to be really careful to be getting that balance right so that you could put the commercial tension in place without actually breaking any trust that you've established over time. We then need to measure the success around SRM. But a bit of a warning there, I have had examples where companies have tried to carve out the benefit of SRM over the benefit of negotiation, the benefit of e-auctions, the benefit of some consultants they've had supporting them. You can get caught up with that. I really think it's an unnecessary process, and it may sound good on paper, but just accept that as a result of what you've done, it is going to deliver benefit to the organization. So how you determine which suppliers, how you're going to segment them? Well, we used to focus on spend. I think what I'm seeing much more now is the introduction of risk. And procurement, we seem to have owned risk over the last 5 or 6 years. And I think we will continue to own it because, again, the relationships with those suppliers. We know where a service is critical. It may not be immediately obvious. Let's face it, with the Middle East crisis, there may be components or products that you didn't realize were critical that all of a sudden are. I would give an example of helium. The knock-on effect of helium across the market, helium used to support the production of computer components, whether it's memory or other chips. Helium is vital to that process. How many of us thought helium was just connected with party balloons? If that is going to be of such shortage and supply and demand misbalance, then we've got to rethink which suppliers are going to be critical, and maybe it's those that we then need to establish an SRM program with, and better do it pretty quick. I think the supplier strategic and cultural alignment, you've got to do this together. I think I've seen examples where a company, just because they've got high spend or see something as critical, has tried to almost enforce SRM on to a supplier. It's not going to work. You've got to make sure there is mutual respect, mutual agreement and trust, and that alignment. And again, if you're doing it to want to do SRM with a company that's just perhaps so much larger than you are not important to them, it's just not going to work. They are just not going to see you as strategic. They're just going to see you as a customer that places purchase orders. So even the most critical supplier, you've got to understand really how not only do you see the supplier, how does the supplier see you as well? So we had the conversations as to what does an SRM program really include. And I think there's some really obvious ones, which you probably know already. I like the idea that if you're having meetings with suppliers, you have a distinction. You have your operational meeting. You have the meeting where you say, oh, this order was late, or this went wrong, or this caused an issue. But you separate the whole meeting with a separate one purely focused on the relationships. The agenda needs to be relationship based. So you've gone through the firefighting stuff, keeping that very separate, having a dedicated focus and probably different people attending does then make it much more sort of valuable. It's a process of explaining what are the benefits for both parties to be part of the SRM program. And in time, the suppliers will really appreciate and get to sort of recognize that they have got this special relationship. But understanding what's motivating the supplier to engage with you, and the longer that goes on, the more engagement you want, that also is important. So it can't all be about you. There's a tendency to think like me, this is what I want. I'm the customer. I've got this list of things. You're my preferred supplier. You're one that I see you as strategic. You've got to listen. So just as we stress in negotiations, it's about listening and engaging and collectively working together. And that's why it takes a bit of time to perfect and get done. So we've polled many of our members to say, look, okay, we understand what you're trying to do. What are the challenges? How do you overcome? So this is a bit of a checklist, if you like, of situations that have really helped organizations as they've been looking at SRM. And again, in isolation, pretty obvious to think about. Start a pilot and set up some champions. But I think if you do that, it's then easier to promote and demonstrate success across your business, and the supplier can do the same across theirs. It may not be purely focusing on cost savings, but focusing on case studies and some other metrics to really get that understanding of how everything is working. I'm not going to cover the rest. We share the slides. You can watch the recording. So anything that I've missed, you can catch up on, because I want to do a second poll. So Kathy, let's launch poll number 2. And this one is trying to understand, if you are struggling with SRM, what are the biggest barriers? So let's quick sup of coffee again. What's the biggest barrier? And I just want you to pick on one, because you could tick all of these, but that would be a bit frustrating, a bit pointless. Is it the lack of commitment from senior stakeholders? Is it this cost savings pressure that I've been talking about? Capacity, capability? And I see we've gone wrong on that, haven't we? Because that's in twice. So apologies there. I don't know if I've missed one out, but let's use the second one. Or the lack of alignment between procurement, stakeholders, and suppliers. So we've got the option that's about the commitment from your stakeholders, the pressure on cost, pressure on capability or capacity, and then the lack of alignment. So there's essentially there 4 for you to select. Let's just give you a bit more time. Just select one, but it is the one that's the biggest barrier to effective. And even those from the first poll that were quite mature and established with SRM, it's not easy. It's a constant pressure of keeping that all in place. We haven't got too many responding on the poll. There's more than twice of you on the Zoom call, so I'm not sure whether the technology is playing up, or hopefully it's not that you can't be bothered. We like the polls because it gives us immediate benchmarking, and I generally do. I will change some of the things I say depending on the poll results, so that we're not just doing it for fun. It's really so valuable to get that immediate benchmarking, and you immediately see how everyone else is responding. In the interest of time, let's end the poll, Kathy. Thank you, and share the results. So we've got a bit of a mix. 40% of you saying it's a limited procurement capacity or capability, and I suspect it's more about the capacity than capability at this stage. Then we've got the challenge around cost savings, and then the lack of alignment. Whether you responded to the poll or not, it gives you the insights as to how others are thinking when it comes to managing their SRM programs. So I hope doing these polls is of value. Also gives me I would say it gives me a break. Actually, it doesn't give me a break from talking because I'm running the poll. Normally when I'm doing polls, someone else reads them all out, and that's when I sit back and enjoy my coffee. Anyway, let's stop talking, Graham, and get on with it. I did want to share with you effectiveness. That'll teach me for drinking too much then. The effectiveness, and we asked our members, okay, you're doing an SRM, how are you actually measuring it? What are the KPIs? We love KPIs. They're a necessary evil. We've got to have them in place. So what are the KPIs specific to SRM that you find of value within the business? And you can see there are 5 there, the top one being increased cost savings. So yeah, as much as we want to focus on the relationships, we've got to get the cost savings as well. And unfortunately, that's going to be even bigger pressure as the next few months go along and inflation starts to creep up on a global basis. I'm going to miss out some of these because I don't need the detail, but I did want to share them. But we got some ideas for improving. So if you're still trying to develop, these came from procurement as to what they are doing and how they are building that SRM program into a greater level of detail. So we've got about 8 or 9 suggestions there, which you can have a look at in due course when Kathy shares the slides with you. Let's move on to stakeholders, because there's 2 sides to this, and I really wanted to cover both SRM, although I probably could have spoken an hour on SRM, but let's focus on balancing it also with stakeholder engagement, because we've got to get that right as well. And I want to start by almost going back to basics on things, because we shouldn't take anything for granted. And we did this conversation, a round table, and one of the questions was, why engage procurement? And I'd like us almost to reflect, take a step back, because we know why we can add value, but how are our stakeholders seeing that? Time after time, I still hear that frustration that where's the function that slows things down, stops using the suppliers you want, makes it difficult because they want to get their suppliers. And of course, the fundamental issue we all face, everyone thinks they can buy, everyone thinks they're a great negotiator. And the reality is, the more senior the stakeholder, the more likely they think that they're really good at those 2 activities. Well, they may or may not be, but they're missing out the reasons to engage procurement. And that needs to be understood. And this is where we come back to that constant selling, that constant justification that we need to do. I've got a complete aside. I wasn't going to tell you this story, but I do like it. I do a lot of the ProcureCon conferences with a guy called Richard Beaumont. He used to be CPO of the Rolls-Royce and some banks, and he's ex-army in the UK, a fellow Brit. And I really like this story that we were talking actually on a podcast, so you can listen to the podcast if you like. This story was, if I'm unwell, if I've hurt my shoulder, I go to the doctor. The doctor says, "What have you done, Graham?" And I say, "I've hurt my shoulder." He'll probably prod around and it'll probably hurt. And he'll say, "Graham, you've pulled your shoulder, you've got some inflammation, take these tablets, have some physio, you'll be fine." And off I go. I'm very happy because I've got a plan to fix my shoulder. Liken that to procurement. So often when we go to stakeholders, we're not asking them, what are they looking for? What do they want? What's their problem? So often we're saying, oh, we've done this analysis, we've cleaned the data, we've gone and analyzed the data, and we've been able to make all these calculations, and we've worked all this lot out. We've done an RFP, we've done a tender, we've involved so many suppliers, and we go on about what we have been doing. The business, the stakeholder wants a solution. Furthermore, back to the doctor's example, the doctor doesn't try to justify why he is qualified to give me the medication. He doesn't say, oh, the reason I'm giving you that medication is that we've done some scientific assessments, and when I did my 7 years training, I looked at this, this, and this. He doesn't go on like that. But procurement, we have a tendency to try and justify ourselves by all the positioning, all the work that we've done. And I think we need to move forward to a point in time that the business accept that we are the best qualified to do the procurement activity, the commercial negotiations, managing the risk compliance, managing innovation, managing governance, and everything else that is the value and the reason why procurement should be engaged. So at the moment, we're still a bit of trying to justify ourselves over and above cost savings. And of course, that keeps coming up. But I would like to get to a point, and hopefully it is within the next 5 years, that we don't need to do that, that it's understood why we should engage with procurement. So that was my little story about the doctors. It helps remember the situation of really not only why engage, but how we should then behave when going to the business stakeholder. And actually, the story does continue a little bit further, that ideally the business will present the problem in a broad enough way that we can then offer solutions in sort of more than one response, rather than, oh, they've already had conversations with a supplier, this consultant, they want to bring that consultant in. They don't care about any others that we've got on the panel. They just want to use that one. So procurement, I've already had the conversation, just go and do the contract. We've still got a long way to go. And this isn't an isolated incident. I hear it and hear examples literally all over the world. But we've got to still pursue, and through stakeholder engagement, hopefully, we can make some really good progress. And I think the next 5 years, which actually makes it really exciting time to be in procurement. There's so much going on. It's you don't want to be missing out on that. So we do deliver value, and CASME members demonstrated this by presenting all the areas where they see that procurement adds value beyond the cost savings. We've got to do the cost savings. Again, an area of frustration for me. No other department has to justify itself in the same way as procurement does. You don't hear legal, you don't hear finance justifying what they do by demonstrating just one small aspect of what they deliver to the business. Procurement, what's your cost savings? Typically, and you may smile, but so often people may say that it's not all about the cost savings, but actually their remuneration, their bonus is tied heavily to a very, very high percentage of cost savings that have been achieved. Then you get into that whole conversation of calculating cost savings versus cost avoidance. And that makes life difficult when we've got inflation increasing month after month. We're in for a tough time for the rest of this year. These are just some of the savings values. Start again. These are some of the value beyond savings that procurement is reporting. So whether it's standardization, supporting contracts, cost avoidance, mitigation, you can read the rest of those. So don't underestimate the value that by engaging with the stakeholder, this is what you can deliver to the organization. Kathy, let's do the third and last poll for today. I want to get your view. What do your stakeholders value most from procurement beyond savings? So I've shown you what CASME members have put forward. Let's get a poll from the audience here. So I say we've got over 30 of you on the call. So is it about risk mitigation and continuity of supply? Is it about market insight and your category expertise? Contracting, commercial protection, supplier innovation and collaboration? Or is it around ESG, sustainability and responsible support, sourcing support? So the options there, and once again, single choice. So we're going to make you select the one. Now, I dare say that if we hadn't got the Middle East crisis, we'd probably get some different answers here. I think it's going to distort it. But I'm not going to preempt. So I'm going to let you answer. We've got, more people are interested in responding to this poll. Must have been something strange about poll 2. So yeah, thank you for contributing to these polls, because it will give us some good insight as to what is exactly going on. Kathy, I think that's probably it. Let's share the results. And no surprise, you know what? I should have probably split out, but because I put risk mitigation and continuity of supply in the same one, you all sat there thinking it's about continuity of supply. So fair enough, but I think that's why that's come in. But also contracting and commercial protection. They almost go a bit hand in hand, but great to see those are the two values that you are delivering at the moment. Market insights. I know only one person out of 15 that have participated in this poll have put that, but I wouldn't underestimate it. I think that is why I'm seeing the strength of category management as a fundamental way that procurement is set up. And the reason it's so successful is because stakeholders say they like the fact we know what's going on in the market. We've got the contacts with the suppliers. We're in a position really to be able to educate and brief those stakeholders, certainly those that perhaps aren't predetermined what they'd like the output to be. Supplier innovation, one of you, fair enough. No one said about ESG. My goodness, how that has changed in the last 3 years. It's quite incredible. Right across the world, ESG has become a dirty 3-letter phrase. So no surprise there that it's just not seen as value. Subject for a separate presentation though. Don't ignore it completely. Don't think it's gone away forever. It may have gone away for a while. You may not be publicly reporting on it, but if you think ESG is gone and never to be heard of again, then you're wrong. It will be out, and we will be doing more on ESG at some point in the future. Thank you, Kathy. That was really good to get that final poll. I've got a number of slides that are the result of different benchmarking data that we've done. We've done a few polls on this subject and also some live events. So that's why I've actually got quite a bit of data. So I'm not going to cover all the data points because I do want to know whether anyone's got any questions. And as per Kathy's note, if you've got any questions, put them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those at the end when I have a chat with Kathy. But interesting to really pick up some of the highlights. And I think we can learn from everyone else. That's the beauty of this. This isn't AI driven. This is what procurement professionals have said. And I know I emphasize that, but I do think it's so important that you know that is where this information has come from. Regular meetings, communicating, working with stakeholders. So obvious, but difficult if you've got a lot of stakeholders that you're working with. Difficult if they're in different physical buildings, different countries. We've become a much smaller world, so your stakeholders may be many hours time difference away. So it may not be as easy as it says. But I think it's important that despite our busyness, we carve out time to engage, brief, and update. And I think there's no other way, quite frankly. If you're in the same building, yeah, you can meet, have a coffee, bump into each other at the water cooler. If that's not the case, and for the majority of people that isn't the case, it is about engaging by setting up video calls. And I always say, look, if you're having a video call, try and have a bit of a chat first rather than just going in. Just same with suppliers. Having that conversation just to make it more personable is so important. However busy you are, and even the stakeholder, I think they'll get to appreciate that you are genuinely interested in what they're up to. And that's why number 2 is that gaining trust. It is so frustrating, and especially for, say, a marketing category, it seems the stakeholders change every 5 minutes. We all have experienced that. And you just get that trust and credibility with the stakeholder, and they move on. And there's nothing you could do about it. And there is nothing you can do about it other than get on with life and repeat the process all over again. It is frustrating, but that's the way that it seems to go with stakeholders. I think for other stakeholders, their longevity in the role is such that it's less of a concern. But certainly marketing, people are always telling me, so frustrating. Get the relationship, the person moves on. I think the good thing, though, is if they move to a different company or different role completely, then we're spreading the word that procurement is a good function and can help. It's just a bit of a long-term investment in your time in supporting that. We also asked the question, what activities have delivered the value to stakeholders? I think more and more want a bit of hand-holding. And if you're running an RFP, running a tender, they want help in devising it, in understanding it, analysing it, interpreting it, simplifying the process as much as possible. And this is also where you'll get the link between stakeholders and then also supplier relationship management. And that's why I wanted to group the two together, because they go hand in hand. You're using the same skills with your stakeholders as you have been using with your suppliers. So there is consistency in that respect. As far as the activities, then again, this is a separate questionnaire, but the same sort of results, demonstrating that collaboration brings benefits. I am hoping that over the next 3 years, despite the fact that teams are shrinking, the AI tools that you use, the automation that you introduce, will leave you more time to spend with stakeholders. And I think the one word that I've heard more times in the last 8 weeks than probably ever before is the word judgment. Procurement professionals bring judgment to decisions. So you've got the AI doing its bit, you've got the automation, you've got your systems, it's coming through with information, with a recommendation, but it's that judgment that's going to determine what the business does. It's that judgment that's going to determine how you work going forward with your stakeholders. And judgment cannot be done by AI. So I would certainly say anyone that sort of is struggling with that whole human versus AI implication, if you think of judgment and where your judgment comes into effect, that is absolutely key to the value you can deliver to stakeholders. Reputation. We are building our reputation. Crises have helped us. They continue to help us. And prior to the Iran conflict, we asked this question about how have you enhanced reputation to to stakeholders. And I think it is where you're helping that evaluation, where you're aligned to their objectives. That's what it's all about. Now, I am seeing some companies that are saying the link between the stakeholder and procurement is now so close that projects are jointly run, and most importantly, where there is remuneration, where there are bonuses assigned to achieving success in those projects, that is split between the stakeholder and procurement. And I think that is a objective that we all should aspire to achieve. That really demonstrates, if you're putting the money against that objective being achieved and splitting it jointly, that really does signify a lot about that reputation improvement that procurement is able to establish and get with its stakeholders. I'm going to miss that one out because I want some time at the end. As you see, I've dumped a whole load of data and information into this one because we've done it in so many different ways. But almost regardless of how you ask the questions, we come back to the very similar themes that how you do get value, how you enhance the reputation that you've got with your stakeholders. Again, this one, which activities demonstrated that value, that negotiation. We've not spoken much about negotiation in this one. It's I know I've done negotiation presentations with you, but it's one of those sort of skills that is so synonymous with procurement that we want to almost claim it for ourselves, claim that yes, that's where we're able to help because we've got really effective negotiation. Now, as a complete aside, the analysis we've done is that one of the main uses and values of AI tools are to help you plan your negotiations. None of us have time. I'm sure if I did a poll, do you spend enough time preparing for your negotiations with suppliers? It would be probably not. We're almost embarrassed about it. But through AI, doing modeling, doing your BATNA calculation, there's an opportunity there to really be able to demonstrate the value in that negotiation preparation and then impress the stakeholder. The more we do that, the more credibility we have that actually negotiation is a skill that sits within procurement because we're good at it and we're very effective in doing it. You can't keep everyone happy all the time. I think that's very clear in my mind. You've got to profile your stakeholders. You've got to use their the objectives and understand what they're looking for. And furthermore, use their terminology. We always talk about you've got to use the terminology, and yet so often we can start off with good intent but retract into the conversation that talks about tenders, RFPs, and yet we're talking to a marketing executive that would much rather us talk about pitches. So for those of us that are working on multiple categories, it's hard, but using their terminology. I've spoken a lot about aligning activity and also adding value. The final one, this start small, establish credibility. I'm in two minds. Yes, that is one approach. What you don't want to be in a situation is being seen as the function or the person that puts the fires out and deals with the low value or low risk contracts. That's the danger of starting small and almost keeping small. So that's definitely one to watch out. Where are we going with this? Well, I think because of AI, because of automation, it is going to be even more important that you become skilled and refine that relationship management skill set that you've got. You're recruiting typically people that are good at dealing with relationships. So that relationships judgment is the core skill of what makes up a procurement professional of the future. And I think the more we tune into that, then the more likely that you're going to make sure you're in that group that's retained rather than the group that sort of is no longer needed because we know the headcount will be cut at some point because of AI. I'm going to stop sharing. I've talked a lot. Gosh, that's been pretty non-stop. As always, none of the information came from AI. None of it was academic or made up, but it came from a very large number of category managers across the world who have contributed to CASME's events and surveys. You may disagree with some of it. Of course, that is absolutely fine, but I hope I've given you something to think about. Those of you that are really mature in this area, then at least you've seen a bit of a different perspective. If you haven't got an SRM program in place, then it gives you something to think about. I hope that's been of interest. And just like magic, Kathy appears. We've had no questions.
No
So either
questions.
we've covered it all or you haven't got any question, which is absolutely fine. But I love it when I get the feedback because I'm talking to myself or looking at this camera and I've got the lights in front of me. But I'm hoping that some of the things that I've said, the fact you invite me back, I must say something that's of interest. But Kathy, thank you so much. It's been great sort of sharing around the importance of relationships, supplier relationship management, relationships with stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Graham. And yeah, such an important topic to include the stakeholder engagement with the SRM. So,
Oh,
so
thanks for
very
the
important.
chat notes coming in now. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. That's great. Thank you so much. Uh, I do love doing these, as you know, Kathy. And can we just say now, before everyone goes,
Hmm.
I'm very excited for June. I forget the date. You'll remind me in a moment. But I'm coming back, and I think initially positioned it as more detail around the hot topics. But I have a sneaky feeling by June there will be so much around the Middle East conflict. We'll dedicate a good chunk of the time to really making sure you're prepared, looking as for those of you that do indirect, the consequences of what has started off as being an oil crisis that will potentially become something bigger. I hope I got it completely wrong, but I think there are too many people sort of positioning it purely from the reality. But really looking forward to that. We'll have some polls and we'll have a good discussion about the hot topics in procurement, focusing on Middle East.
Definitely. And that's going to be on Tuesday, June 16th. So it'll be on a Tuesday this time. It'll
Oh,
be at
okay.
2 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'll be sending that link so you can pre-register now because we have people already starting to register for this program, even though we just got it on the web
Cool.
2 days ago.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Excellent. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, come with your questions. Come with your questions, that one.
definitely. I think we're going to get a load of questions on the
Mm.
next one next month. But thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and thank you, Graham, as always, for another fantastic program.
Thank you all. Until next time. Indeed.
Okay, thank you
Bye for
all.
now. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Graham.